Right now, your driving license could be at risk and you probably don't even know it. Not because you're a bad driver, not because you're reckless, but because 2026 has quietly brought in some of the biggest changes to UK driving law in decades, and most people are still operating on rules that no longer exist. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's changed, what it costs you if you get it wrong, and the simple steps you can take today to make sure you're fully protected. Stay with me because some of what I'm about to share is genuinely going to surprise you. Let's start with the one change I believe is going to catch the most drivers completely off guard: the drink drive limit. For as long as most of us can remember, the rough rule of thumb has been this: 1 or 2 drinks is probably fine. A pint at the pub with dinner, a small glass of wine at a family gathering, then drive home. Millions of people have made that calculation for years. It felt acceptable. It felt legal. It isn't anymore. The government announced on the 7th of January 2026 that England and Wales are slashing the legal drink drive limit dramatically. The current limit is 35 micrograms of alcohol per 100 milliliters of breath. The new proposed limit is 22 micrograms. That's less than 2/3 of what it currently is. In real terms, for the average person, a single standard drink, 1 pint of regular lager, 1 small glass of wine, 1 measure of spirits, could put you at or above the new legal limit. Not 3 drinks, not 2, 1. And here's the thing that makes this even more complicated. There is no reliable formula. Your size, your metabolism, whether you've eaten, how tired you are, even the time of day, all of these affect how your body handles alcohol differently. What keeps your friend under the limit might push you over it. Scotland introduced this same lower limit back in 2014. The data since then is unambiguous. Fewer deaths, fewer serious injuries. It works. England and Wales are catching up, and the law is catching up fast. So, if you're still running the old mental calculation, the only genuinely safe approach once this comes into force is 0. Not 1, not half of 1. 0 if you're planning to drive. And please, if you have people in your life who haven't heard this yet, pass it on, because a lot of people are about to get a very expensive, very serious shock. Now, closely connected to drink driving, and in some ways even more significant, is what's happening with drug driving enforcement. The law on drug driving has technically been clear for years. If you drive while impaired by drugs, you're committing a serious criminal offense. But here's the problem that's existed for a long time. The enforcement process has been broken. When police pulled someone over and suspected drug driving, they could do a roadside saliva swab test. But, and this is the critical part, that roadside test alone could not be used as evidence in court. Officers had to follow it up with a blood test at a police station. Only that blood test counted legally. And that gap, that delay, that extra step meant prosecutions fell apart. Cases were dropped. People walked away. That loophole is being closed in 2026. The new rules will allow a positive roadside saliva test to stand as standalone evidence in court. No follow-up blood test required. That single swab taken at the side of the road is now enough to prosecute you. Think about what that means. The process becomes faster, simpler, far more likely to result in a conviction. Cannabis, cocaine, ecstasy, ketamine, benzodiazepines. If you test positive for any of the substances covered by drug driving legislation, that's it. The case is already built. Prosecution rates will go up, conviction rates will go up, and the window for the legal process to fall apart has been closed. The message here is not subtle. If you have taken drugs, do not drive. Not because you might get caught, though now you almost certainly will, but because it kills people. Let's talk about something that might sound almost too basic to mention, but stick with me, because the change being made here is genuinely shocking. Seatbelts. You already know you're supposed to wear one. Most of us do, most of the time. But the current penalty for being caught without your seatbelt is just a fine, up to £500. No points on your license, just money. And while £500 is not nothing, some drivers have clearly decided it's a risk worth taking. That calculation is about to change completely. From 2026, being caught without your seatbelt will carry 3 penalty points on your license. 3 points for a seatbelt. But here's the part that most people haven't fully thought through. That penalty doesn't just apply to you. As the driver, you are legally responsible for every passenger in that vehicle. So if you're driving with 3 people in the car and none of them are belted up and you get stopped, you are potentially looking at 12 penalty points in a single traffic stop. 12. That is enough to lose your license entirely. For new drivers, who can only accumulate 6 points before their license is automatically revoked, 3 points for a seatbelt offense is half their entire allowance. Gone. In one stop, before they've even been driving a year. This is one of the easiest rules in the world to comply with. Belt on before the car moves. Every single person, every single journey. Make it non-negotiable. Speed enforcement is the next major change, and the shift in approach here has already begun. For years, there's been an informal tolerance built into how speed cameras operated. You probably know what I'm talking about. The understanding, not official, not written down anywhere but widely known, that you had a few miles per hour of breathing room above the limit before anything would actually happen. It wasn't guaranteed. It wasn't law, but it was relied upon. That era is over. The approach now being adopted across the UK is described as zero tolerance. No warnings, no breathing room. Cameras have been expanded, fixed units, mobile enforcement, new technology that is more accurate and more reliable than anything that came before it, and they are no longer where you expect them. Speed cameras are on residential streets, in town centers, near schools, near roadworks. They operate at 3 in the morning just as effectively as during rush hour. The quiet country road, the empty dual carriageway at night. The thinking that there's never a camera here simply doesn't hold up anymore. But here's what has changed most dramatically. For those caught traveling significantly above the limit, we are no longer automatically talking about points and a fixed penalty. Immediate license suspension is now on the table for excessive speed. The authorities have been explicit about this. Excessive speeding is now treated with the same gravity as drink driving. Enforcement will match that. If there's one message to take from this section, it's straightforward. The road you drive on every day is watched more closely than you think. The limit is the limit, not the limit plus 10. Now let's talk about something that has been illegal for a while, but is about to become dramatically harder to get away with, using your mobile phone behind the wheel. The rules were tightened significantly in 2022. Since then, any interactive use of a handheld device while driving is banned, and that includes when you're sitting stationary at a red light. The car is in motion, legally speaking, if you're in control of it. You can't hold your phone. Full stop. The penalty is £200 and 6 penalty points. For a new driver, that's an instant license revocation. Gone, immediately, with no further discussion. But here's what's genuinely new in 2026. And this is the part that should make anyone who still picks up their phone at the lights sit up straight. Camera systems that can automatically detect phone use are now being deployed on UK roads. These systems do not need a police officer to observe you. They don't need you to be pulled over. They scan vehicles as they pass and identify phone use. You may see no police car at all. You may have no idea it happened. And then the penalty notice arrives through your letterbox. The camera saw you. That's enough. This is a fundamental change in risk. It's not about avoiding a police officer anymore. It's about a camera network that operates constantly in all weathers around the clock. Mount your phone before you set off. Set up hands-free properly. If you genuinely need to interact with it, pull over somewhere safe, engine off, and deal with it. It takes 2 minutes. It is not worth what it costs. If you drive into London, or if you own an electric vehicle, or especially if you're one of the many people who bought an EV partly because of the financial benefits, pay close attention here, because some of these changes have already hit. From the 2nd of January 2026, the daily London congestion charge rose from £15 to £18. That's an extra £3 every day you drive in. Across a working week, that's £15. Across a month, £60. Across a year, £720, on top of what you were already paying. But the change that has genuinely blindsided people is what happened to electric vehicle owners. The full 100% exemption from the congestion charge that EV drivers previously enjoyed ended on Christmas Day 2025. If you bought an electric car partly because you could drive into London for free, that benefit no longer exists. From January 2026, electric vehicles get a 25% discount, bringing the daily charge to £13.50, but only if you've registered for autopay through Transport for London. If you haven't set that up, you pay the full £18 or £21 if you pay after the day of travel. The difference between being registered and not being registered is real, recurring, significant money. If you drive into London regularly, checking your TfL autopay status is something you need to do today. And more broadly, the era of the electric vehicle as a tax-free proposition is over. Since April 2025, EVs have been subject to vehicle excise duty, road tax, £190 per year from the second year of ownership. The exemptions that made the financial case so compelling when many people bought their cars have been unwound one by one. There's also a road pricing scheme under active discussion that would charge EV drivers approximately 3 pence per mile driven, compensating the government for the fuel duty revenue it loses when people go electric. None of this makes an electric vehicle a bad choice. Day to day, they remain cheaper to run than petrol or diesel in most situations. But if your calculations were built on the old incentives, it's time to sit down and run those numbers again. For petrol and diesel drivers, the fuel duty freeze that has been in place for 16 years is expected to end from September 2026, with the 5 pence per liter cut maintained since 2022 likely beginning to be reversed. If you cover significant mileage, factor that into your financial planning for the second half of this year. Now, here's a change that I want to handle carefully because it's important and it affects people we care about: older drivers and eyesight testing. A consultation launched on the 7th of January 2026 is examining mandatory eyesight testing for drivers aged 70 and over. At the moment when you hit 70 and renew your license, which you're required to do every 3 years, you simply self-declare that your eyesight meets the legal standard. You tick a box, you confirm it yourself. There's no independent check, no optician visit, no formal test. The problem that safety organizations and eye health professionals have been raising for years is this: age-related vision conditions, cataracts, macular degeneration, glaucoma, the gradual loss of peripheral vision, are extremely common in older people, and they develop slowly. Slowly enough that the person affected doesn't always fully realize how much their sight has changed. When something happens gradually, it can be invisible to the person experiencing it. The proposed change would require an independent eyesight test every 3 years as part of license renewal for over 70s. This is not about taking independence away from older drivers. The vast majority of older people on the road are experienced, careful, and entirely safe. It's about making sure that the one thing most fundamental to safe driving, the ability to see clearly, is being properly assessed, not self-certified. If you're approaching 70 or if you have a parent or grandparent who drives, encourage them to get an up-to-date eye test now, before any requirement comes into force, so that there are no surprises. Here's something that many drivers don't think about until it's too late, and by then, the consequences can be genuinely devastating. The ANPR camera network, that's automatic number plate recognition, is being significantly expanded in 2026. These cameras, run by police forces and local authorities, scan your number plate as you pass and instantly cross-reference your vehicle against multiple databases. Is your MOT valid? Is your road tax paid? Is your insurance in place? If any of those checks return a problem, you can receive a fine, have your vehicle seized, or find yourself before a court, all without ever being stopped by a human officer. And the hidden danger here, the one that catches people completely unprepared, is what happens at the point of a claim. If your MOT had lapsed, your insurer may argue your insurance was invalid. They may refuse to pay out, and suddenly, you're personally exposed to costs that could genuinely ruin you financially. Checking your MOT status, your vehicle tax, and your insurance validity takes less than 10 minutes on the gov.uk website. It is one of the most straightforward things you can do to protect yourself. Do it today. Finally, for learner drivers and for parents going through the process with someone, there are meaningful changes coming to both how you book the practical test and what happens during it. From spring 2026, only the learner themselves can book their practical driving test. This closes a loophole where automated systems were bulk buying test slots and reselling them at inflated prices. Learners are now also limited to 2 changes to their booking before they have to cancel and start again. And you can no longer switch to a test center in a quiet rural area just to get an earlier date. The test itself is changing in ways that matter. The independent driving section, where you navigate using a sat-nav or road signs without the examiner guiding you, is being doubled in length from 10 minutes to 20. That's a significant shift. It signals clearly that the ability to think independently, make decisions, and navigate real roads without being told what to do is now considered central to genuine driving competence. The theory test is also being updated to include questions on basic first aid, specifically CPR and the use of automated external defibrillators. The reasoning behind this is both logical and quietly profound. Drivers are statistically among the most likely people to be first on the scene of a road traffic accident. If every new driver has even a basic understanding of how to keep someone alive in those critical minutes before the ambulance arrives, that knowledge saves lives. So here's where we are. Lower drink drive limits that make even one drink a risk. Drug driving enforcement that's been fundamentally tightened. Seatbelt offenses that can now cost you your license in a single stop. Zero tolerance on speeding with immediate suspension for serious violations. Phone detection cameras that work without a police officer in sight. Congestion charge rises and the end of EV exemptions. Road tax for electric vehicles. Fuel duty increases on the horizon. Mandatory eyesight testing for older drivers under consultation. An expanding ANPR network watching vehicle compliance around the clock, and a driving test that now demands real-world independent thinking. Every single one of these changes exists because road accidents destroy families, because people have been killed and seriously injured in situations where better law, better enforcement, and better driver behavior would have saved them. Good drivers adapt. They learn the new rules. They protect themselves and the people around them. Know what's changed. Keep your vehicle legal and roadworthy, and drive as though every other person on that road matters, because they do.